Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I am doing a review of Codex Putrefactio, Nigra the second. I don't have the first book. It's not required to have the first book to work with the second book. First book is just um, either out of stock in some places or it's just too expensive. So this one I actually got in hard copy at Amazon. I think it was 50 something dollars. It's worth getting the hardback. Just to let you know. Even though it comes off as a left-hand path kind of grimoire, the entities, at least for me, seem pretty balanced, except for the death god Mott. Okay, so this is basically a grimoire that's dedicated to the knight and adversarial powers of Canaan. And this kind of got me into the whole Canaanite pantheon. So I went down the rabbit hole. But the first deity that I was drawn to was Sapsu, which is a sun goddess, but also an underworld goddess when she sets. And that was interesting because in a way she kind of reminded me of Ra, but not quite, because when she goes into the underworld, she adapts. She doesn't get attacked. And she just, with my experiences, my gnosis, she just comes off as very balanced. She's known as a psychopomp, so she's a guide to the underworld, but she can also talk about things that are within the conscious level of the practitioner's life or just life in general. I mean, there were even times when I asked her about ancient Canaan and she was able to tell me some stuff, like about the lifestyle. So she's a very interesting goddess. I've done multiple videos on her on this channel, which if you follow me, you should know about. The interesting part of this book I find are the tables. I've used the sigils, but I've also used the tables. Now, the interesting thing about the tables is there are three types. One is in the Ugaritic cuneiform. One is in the kind of older form of Hebrew. And then one uses the modern day Hebrew letters. Now, to get the most out of understanding the aspects of the gods that you tap into, it's good to look up the symbolism of these letters. So like with the Ugaritic, you would have to figure out which one corresponds to the current alphabet that we use. And most people don't understand that the current alphabet that we use are basically sigils and they have their own meaning. So once you figure out which cuneiform symbol corresponds with what letter of the English alphabet, you can look up the English letter and see what it means, what it symbolizes, and get an understanding of the deity from that perspective. When you use the ancient Hebrew letters, sometimes they will differ from the modern day Hebrew, but sometimes they won't. But if you have an understanding of what the modern day Hebrew letters symbolize, you can get an understanding of the aspects of that particular deity. As for Mott, well, I haven't really used, I don't think there are any tables for Mott. It's just kind of like a sigil, but I ended up making my own sigil for Mott and kind of doing my own thing. Mott is not a hard entity to contact. However, instead of really trying to communicate with Mott, with me, it was more kind of like you just witness Mott. it's funny because they use modern day things that I understand in order to kind of explain themselves to me. So Mott came off many times as Godzilla. That's what Mott was symbolized as. And, you know, if you've ever watched any of the old movies or even the current movies, it's kind of like you don't contact Godzilla, you just kind of let Godzilla do their thing and you move out the way. And so it's kind of like when you contact Mott, you just align with the energy and become a witness. And then you just kind of learn from that. Mott comes off as a very primordial entity. Is also aligned with water. So, you know, of course, if you study the Canaanite pantheons, you know that Mott and Yam are allies, and Yam represents the chaotic waters of the subconscious. So, yeah. Overall, very good book. I enjoy it. I go back to it. When I work with the Canaanite pantheon, I just use the tables over and over again. I bought colored paper. So the colors that correspond with the different deities, I'll use that paper to make the tables. The paper of that specific color that corresponds with the deity. So worked very well and got a lot of information. Still studying the Canaanite pantheon and enjoying it fully. So that's my review of the book. If you're interested, go enjoy it. I recommend it.